But the people must understand that the U.S. is not legitimate. The U.S. is the deep state.
Yes.
See, that's not the. But it, you know, when they say, well, the deep state is trying to overthrow the U.S. democracy. The U.S. democracy is the deep state. The UN is the deep state. The UN is the U.S. democracy. See,
so what they're trying to do, like you said, is to bring in another phase of their already planned out
It's a phase
agenda
of the ongoing war that didn't end. You know how when we tell people once you start studying jurisdictions and you start studying chronologies of activities after the fall of the Red House, you will see different periods of times the hybrid Europeans will change the names of the corporate entities, but the activities are the same. This is to throw people off of what's going on. As an example, you know, when Anna von Rees acted as the private attorney for Pope Francis, and after Pope Francis called people from around the world, leaders, so-called religious and political leaders from around the world, and they promised to stop the activities of the doctrine of discovery. How many people knew that what they were calling racism all these years was the activity of the doctrine of discovery? And it still hasn't dawned on them that that's what they're talking about. And that all of this is the operations that took place since 1492 in the fall of the Red House. That's the foundation of the politics. But how many people recognize the jurisdiction to put that together? And it's not complex. But yet they would talk about these things as different subject matter and as if it didn't apply today.
Let me ask you this. Since all these operations are de facto at best, a lot of distractions take place to have, you know, there's always a sleight of hand going on with them, a distraction over here, and then the very next day or the same day something is something being legislated and so forth.
Yes.
How do we, even though we know these politricians are—
all right, now that you're talking about the distractions relative to the politics, let me answer this question.
Okay, because
I'll start answering the question like this with the distractions. And that's one of the main ones, because people aren't paying attention to jurisdiction. And that's one of the things to get you not to pay attention to what's really going on without even saying it.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of legislation goes through, and I know, you know, when I used to—
and the legislation, if it's colored, is not law.
Right.
This what must
we don't even read these things when they're in their beginning states. We don't look at this stuff. We don't read. Exactly. We don't oppose anything. And by the time we up there marching and praying, it's because it's already passed.
And then they're going to go around and discuss how to they're going to sign the census. Do you see? We're back to that even. Do you see the point that I'm saying to you, Dr. Naila?
Yes.
Now, and yet, if you say to many of these people who matter these issues, if they're talking about the census as an example, say, tell me about all the jurisdictional matters concerning the census, and watch them get persimmon lips, as if your question is not related to what they're talking about, and it's absolutely encompassing it. Absolutely. And the questions that evolve from all these things go back to the jurisdictional issue. But I'm presenting it to show you and to demonstrate to you that people who should be addressing these things are actually enmity to the people you've trusted, not just the hybrid Europeans. Because to resolve these problems, you're going to have to talk about what's really going on. You can't continue to address these things from emotional belief positions. You must be specific of what's going on, and you're talking about the multiple levels of jurisdiction. That's a fact. Failure to address them is an abdication of rights and liberties, which is what's been happening to you, us, collectively.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things.
Well, that's why they're allowed to go on, meaning that this is what's been happening, Dr. Naila. The neglect that has been going on for all these generations have hit what you call an apex. So now the results of the seeds planted can no longer be ignored. And then the problem is people are still trying to argue them from the emotional perspective and not what is really going on, which is a collage of crossed jurisdictional issues, quote unquote, crossed jurisdictional issues. Where is what the problem is? They're talking about racism, viruses, and everything else, which is not the issue. It doesn't mean these aren't issues. That's not what's going on. And what's happening is they keep abdicating their rights of claim by getting diverted into arguments that are not relative to root cause. Meaning like now, if we start today, now let's talk about whether or not cold virus exists. Sure, cold virus exists. Well, why are you arguing that? They always existed, and they're going to continue this. That statement that I just made right now is no different than someone saying whether coronavirus exists or not. Logically, it does. Now, what it is, whether it's been mutated, what's going on, that's a whole different venue that you're also being diverted from. On the premise of, the virus really exists. Yeah, well, it's like saying, elephants are really mostly gray. Who among you saying that they're not? And everybody starts arguing different versions of elephants. Meanwhile, they're still in your states and waging wars. And let me tell you again, how about some of you who are going to discover that this is some of you who have what you call Social Security payments, veterans, so-called checks, retirement funds, pension funds. You're going to, we've been telling you all the time, and some of you who are listening here tonight, whether you're in the UK, whether you're in Canada, any part of North America, and there are different venues that listen to the House of Reawakening Minds, I don't even have to ask you because I already knew it was going to happen. And many of you who will deny it can't deny it. Your checks are late, and some of you didn't get them on time. And it's been happening for the last couple of months, more recently, evidentially. Now tell me, text that in and tell me that that's not true. And we've been telling you. And guess what? They're sitting around arguing about whether a virus exists or not to distract them from the fact that these people who you've been calling falsely your government have robbed you and blamed China for it, robbed you and blamed Russia for it, and still distracting you, blaming everyone else when really what we told you 4 or 5 years ago, that the trade windows would freeze up and that the credit windows of the world would freeze up. And that's what you're experiencing. And you can call Corona and you can call whatever you want to call it. You can keep pretending you don't understand the jurisdictions. But guess what? You're going to start sticking your card in some ATM machines and they're going to get a cold and cough and your card ain't coming back. Or they're going to cough I said they're going to cough the digits off. They're going to cough the digits off your card. Put it in the ATM and going burp and you pull the card back out and it'll be blank. And stick it back in and you're going to get 0 accounts. And not only that, some of you others who we've told you we've told you this in the last year and a half. Again, some of you people with multiple 0 accounts have found your account go all the way down to 0. And they're controlling your complaints from getting in the mainstream news. And you have no venues to complain because you could tell the public what's been happening to some of you who technically were somewhat wealthy and discovered that your accounts went from 6 zeros to 0. It's not even accounting some of the little snafus. Oh, Monday the computers. See, this asteroid is coming near the Earth and stuff like that, and it made the tides come up. And then the computers had a glitch on it, and I didn't get my Social Security check. And then I fell back a little bit more. But see what they're doing, they're making sure that they can't evict me. And that's how you all talk, and you ain't paying attention to jurisdictional issues, and that you're being diverted, because what's happening to you now is getting ready to increase. And guess what? A lot of these questions that people are projecting, they're not going to be talking about questions. They're going to be talking about, where's the nearest person who I thought was government? We have a rope for them and a guillotine. Why you telling me? You should have done that generations ago. And what has happened, you let this BS go on for so many generations, and now you're starting feeling the fruits of your labor. You're now starting to reap what you have sown. I say this to you as I've said it before. Don't accept what Taji Guy is saying. Prove me a liar. Now it doesn't matter anymore for me to try to convince you all of anything, because now Rome is showing you openly that they are your enemy. And if you don't accept that, that's on you. And you keep jumping in their jurisdiction, what you don't do is make a pact with the devil. Because guess what they don't honor? They honor no contracts. They honor no constitutions. They honor no treaties. They are absolutely and positively rogue and de facto. Have fun.
I was listening to Lizette Zhang today, and she was talking about the fact that I'm not sure exactly what happened, but it happened on the 29th of August, the day after we were distracted by Chadwick Boseman's transition.
After the sacrifice.
Right. Well, the day after, the very day after, there was something major that happened with this financial collapse, and they've been covering it up. But what she talked about is coming up is that they're basically moving us very, very quickly to, of course, the digital society. And what they're going to do is what they had hoped with the $1,200 stimulus checks is that people would run out and buy stuff to stimulate the economy. But a lot of people held on to this, believe it or not, held on to the $1,200. So now what they're moving by before January 21st, I don't know what the significance of that. They want to have it so that we're at a digital, they moved it, the currency is digital, and that if you don't say expend it in a certain period of time, it's going to start it's going to be all the way down. They can take it from whatever.
Which means, what have we been telling people for years? The digital system is being set up so they can steal from you easier than they did before with the physical fiat. Right. And the people still don't understand that those are jurisdictions.
Yep.
Meaning that and this is what's been happening. People, and this is not just people who were considered what you call economically poor. People who've had businesses, etc., who say last month they had an account with 6 digits in it, discover their account is down to 4 digits, and they have no outlet of communication to argue or to publicly inform the people. That's what's happening to them. It's going to be happening to a lot of people. As soon as they go there, guess what happens immediately? It's already in place. The same way they're going to steal their energy output through the digital, they also use that same digital platform to do what? Sometimes, what's been happening over the last year or so when we started talking controversial issues, Dr. Naila, right in the midst of your conversation, same thing. That's what they're going to do to your digital cards, y'all. And now you're talking what? A digital jurisdiction, which was a plan to get you off the fiat so they can rob you quicker. Not that the fiat wasn't fiat. Yes, it's fiat. But digital is what? Imagination. It's easier to steal an abstract than to steal physical, even though the physical itself comes under the private commercial paper of fraud. Let's look at this. How many people, you know, like how many people, just like when you're working or doing something, can go past a junkyard and you'll see people with trucks, cars, etc., going to the junkyard with old vases and stuff that's silver plated and stuff like that, and you'll see people going there with copper pipes that's plumbers all day long buy and sell, and then they're telling you that there's a coinage shortage, and all of a sudden they've been running the press of the private commercial operatives of the Jesuit order 24/7, running a press all over this land, and then they tell you that there's a money shortage or coinage shortage. Of course, there's money shortage because they've been stealing your gold and silver for the people. But we're talking about the fiat notes, etc. And it's been so common. You can walk down the street if you paid attention. Before you get to the next block, you can pick up 5 or 6 cents in pennies, etc. But then there's a coinage shortage, and you got all this metal, all these junkyards. Don't think that in 1943 they weren't pressing coins out of zinc and lead, etc. So let's get off that. Coinage means a metal pressed, whether it is valuable or not, that's secondary. And so the deal of it is the fact that they're creating another false jurisdiction, and people are what? Falling for it. They're seeing it in their faces and they're falling for it. How much trash do you see that you put out every day that's recyclable? Rags, clothes, paper, etc. You know, you're getting tired of the paper and stuff. You know, small households produce more trash in a few days than we used to produce in a week or a month, say in the 50s or something like that. Now, and so what are the Federal Reserve notes made of? Trash, paper, and rags. That's what they're made of. Wow. Now, how's that scarce? Yeah. How many Hershey wrappers do people eat? And bubble, don't throw that on the ground, you know, I mean, it's every day. All this is paper with rag for reinforcement, fiber, with ink on it. And people act like it's money. It's not money, but they're falling for the narrative that it's scarce. You'll see in some places now they're saying, there's a coin, so we have a shortage of coin. Never had them before. People's trying to get rid of the change. You know, please stop. It's BS. However, you know, it's like this. They're creating what? A new false jurisdiction so they can rob the people better and complete their cycle of unum sanctum operations to steal the people from the people economically, to enforce Rex 84, King Alpha Plan, Executive Order 11490, Technical Manual, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It's documented what they're going to do to you. They didn't even hide it. But how many people never even read it? And we're talking about what's exposed. We're not even talking about what's hidden. You know, so deal with it. That's what I have to say about that. Now, the people can act like they can keep on pretending that jurisdiction is not the issue. And guess what happens? That's how we got to where we are right now, except unlike most of the people I've gotten used to, they're not going to return to things as they were usual. They intend to break the people's back this time. Not that we need to go back to what was. It's not that. We need to go back to treaty and constitutional principles, really. And so what did they come from? One form of fiat to a what? A more controllable form of fiat, and training the people like rats to call it money. They don't know that it's not money, and currency is not money. You know, and they keep using it in the same venue. Now they've created another false jurisdiction. And this is back to our earlier conversation. If we don't correct that with our people, consider the loss. So the best thing we can do, and this is what I say to you, and I'll say this over and over again, do your best and leave the rest. Try to get information out there as clean as possible and save some of the youth. because most of the people in what is called the adult population will be exterminated economically and politically. They will be broken. And when they resist, they're going to be camped and checked. Now, that's not a threat from me. That's the fact. And these people keep pretending they don't get this, don't understand this, and they keep looking for, oh, they're going to vote for somebody that's going to fix what the other party broke. And they've been doing this for generation after generation after generation, trading places to rob the people, promises them a chicken, a peanut butter sandwich, and a Hershey bar. And these people keep voting for them, not even knowing that the vote doesn't even count on a platform of decisions for the people. It is a sanction for you to become a new stock option for them. These very same people that you think you're voting to represent you, no, what you're doing is agreeing to represent their stock derivative options that went bust. The only caveat to that, to your advantage, is not what you've done, but the fact that the nations of the world aren't buying them treasury bonds anymore, even against your own interest, against yourself. And now you can't even control what you thought you wasn't controlling in the first place, but that you thought you were compromising, selling yourself out. You can't even sell yourself out anymore because the nations ain't buying those T-bonds. So the credit windows of the world froze. So now they're trying to do it digital to rob the rest of what you got, so you can't resist and come at them with guillotines and ropes, which you should have done back when George Washington and Thomas Jefferson told you about these operatives of the corporations. He says any of these politicians that stay in office and make a career out of the office, if you're wise, if you are wise, you will go in them offices, drag them out, line them against the fence, and shoot them. That's those so-called founding fathers these people keep talking about, not some radicals. They told you and they warned you. You didn't do it because you was busy enslaving us, the people of the land, and promoting the brands under the 14th Amendment. Now you found out that they're what? Sacrificing you too. However, it still ain't your estate. So now you see Donald Trump, Joe Biden, all the rest of the members of the Ku Klux Klan operations of the Jesuit order fighting over an estate that don't belong to them, because none of them are Americans. Have fun, because it's getting ready to get hotter. And we ain't talking about that comet either. The comet is bigger than Jupiter and shit. And yeah, when it comes past the Earth, even though it's a couple of million miles, the wink of his tail is really going to raise swell. Yeah, right. Diversion again. You know, we had a flood over there across the street and stuff. Harp. You know, we had 2 storms at the same time. Harp. You're being distracted.
Or whatever they calling it now.
You're being distracted. I'm not saying these things ain't happening. These things, they're attacking you. These people don't get that these people that they keep claiming is their government is waging war on the people. Yes. They're waging war on the people. They better understand jurisdiction and try to save the little bit they got.
In conclusion.
In conclusion.
In conclusion, you got 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh.
Go ahead. Yeah. 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh, you on?
You're off.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for enlightening me about the silver, because I heard you for years. Yeah. I heard you say for years y'all need to get silver, and I kept thinking,
while you can.
Why you can't? Because that could, you know, when I understand back when the gold thing changed years ago, they made it illegal to have any gold coins that were made after 1933.
Now let's look at this.
And they
on what foundation of law was that decree made? What treaty sanctioned that? What constitution sanctioned that?
I have no idea.
It's a rogue action. It is an act of treason. You see the problem. You see where we are today?
Right.
They created false jurisdiction after false jurisdiction and exercised jurisdictional powers on territorial jurisdiction, all of which and none of which they possessed. They are enemies, foreign and domestic, and have not been treated accordingly by the people. Now the people are what? On the verge of losing all of their estates.
Everything.
And they're what? Calling the House of Reawakening Minds. What do we do? Called reversion of a state. So you better study what that means, because that's another jurisdictional claim. And we've been saying that one for the last 70 years or so. Whatever. In other words, like this. If somebody keeps beating you up and stealing your pie, your mom bakes your pie every week, and every week you get a good whiff of it, and before you can get a bite, somebody beats you up and takes your pie every week. After a while, tell your mom, say, "Oh, you know them pumpkin pies that you make me, Mom, every week and stuff? I never get a chance to taste them anyway. So why don't, when we clean up the lawn after we start walking Fido, and then you make these pies, because they're going to take them anyway. And after a while, they'll stop taking the pies because they won't be that tasty. Plus, they'll stink." It's just like that. Somebody keep taking your sandwich, start making the. You know, they say, you got good sandwiches, you go to lunch every time you go to lunch. The bully comes and beat you up, take your sandwiches. Start getting your mom make them nasty sandwiches, they'll stop taking your lunch.
How's that translate into what we would be actually doing?
That means if we start making adverse claims and setting up trust, it starts putting a fence between you and the false operatives of the corporate state de facto operations, because they're having difficulties even now floating bonds because people are nationalizing around the country, etc., the true country. And even though many of the concepts are wrong, the fact of them being active and not passive is interrupting the bond system. You'll never capture any of them. But what you can do, you understand, is you can put vinegar in your glass of water they keep stealing. And believe me, they're not going to do the drink it down real quick, steal your water again, go and gulp, gulp, gulp. You know, it's not going to be tasty. It's like this. You make it they're stealing from you, make it uncomfortable for them. That's what I'm saying. How do you do make it uncomfortable? You learn fundamental trust law, start putting everything that allegedly is yours, which it is by moral yours, but legal process under the false jurisdiction of the rogue operatives called the United States Trading Service Company operatives, etc., and the Roman Curia. They've declared that you own nothing. They declared that they owned you and your soul, which is what they've been doing politically. It's not racism. It's called soul theft. They've been stealing your light. Now you can pretend that that's not what's been happening, and guess what? You will be one of those ones that they say finally exterminated. But for those of you who want to save a little bit what you have left, you're not going to be too good at gaining things, because they're with their war machine, they're trying to make it as impossible as they can. However, what you can do is not make it easy for them. So set up trust and start making adverse claims on all your property, etc., and stop signing their private human trafficking census, which sanctions them to make another bond against the name that you think that you're calling yourself. The plus, like I said earlier, is because the nations aren't buying them anyway. So they can keep on making these bonds and no one's buying them. So that's why, again, why you have the feedback loop. Not because just because these people are waking up and nationalizing, but also because the world are not buying them bonds anymore on those birth certificates, marriage certificates, and other feudal law instruments that were legislated under color law by the rogue operative owners of the United States Service Corporation, run by the Circle Church and the Chancery from Fleet Street, England, and the Queen of England, etc., answering to the Pope. The platform has collapsed. Translation, they don't want to trade with Babylon no more. They're going to let her stuff burn. And if you keep on holding on to it and not paying attention to true jurisdictions, you're going down with her.
Come out of her. Come out of her. Listen, thank you so much, Grand Sheik. I know you have to go. It's been 3 hours, but I just want to remind those that are listening of the upcoming 12-week contract law course that United Republic of Morocco is sponsoring. It's from September 19th, 2020 through December 12th, 2020. It is a 12-week contract law course which will provide the students with the knowledge of the divine source which all contracts are formed before they are put in writing or expressed. Also, students will learn the uniform commercial codes dealing with securities, negotiable instruments, real substance and entitlement rights. Furthermore, the students will be taught the basis of contract through treaties, trust, agreements, constitutions, and bylaws. It's going to be held every Saturday for 12 weeks. There is a fee of 300 notes for the 12-week course. You can go to our House of Reawakening Minds Facebook page for the for information, the flyers there. You can contact Sister Tamara L at 302-438-8970. You can Cash App her for your payment at $ Tamara.
That's yours.
You said Tamara DL. Okay, but go to our Facebook page, House of Reawakening Minds Facebook page, if you want more information. I know many of you have already signed up, but that's coming up, and it's in line with, jurisdiction.
It is. It is jurisdiction.
It is jurisdiction. So we want to thank you so much for tuning in to tonight. Grand Sheik has been working very hard this week. He's very tired, and I want to get him off and so he can go and rest. Thank you so much for your support. Listen, I don't say this like I should, but press those likes, give us some thumbs up and likes, subscribe to our page, to House of Reawakening Minds YouTube page. Check me out on Tuesday nights for office hours with Dr. G every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Every other Sunday, Open Circle Gathering at 12 p.m. Eastern time with my co-host, Brother Amanero Jabril Bey. We just want you to know that we love you and we're doing everything we can to keep this platform full of knowledge. Also, make sure on Thursday nights that you check out State of the Nationals with Sister Tamara L, which is on Blog Talk Radio. We are here for you. We love you. We appreciate you. Please, support us, our Cash App, our PayPal. Give us some thumbs up, give us some likes, and send us some energetic love. We thank you. We appreciate you so very, very, very much. Until next week, it will be Brothers Abdullah and Brother Shem will be here. Please tune in next week. But before that, I guess it will be me on Tuesday. And I have a guest that is scheduled who will be coming from Brazil. Last week we were in. Last week, look, I'm going international. Last week was Vietnam, and next week my guest will be from Brazil. So thank you so much. Until next time.
Peace.
Peace.